She went to the video section.
And hopefully I'll be able to share my screen.
Brad Boyd, whenever you are ready, we are live.
Okay.
From Divisions 21, 22 Division Council meeting.
Well, thank you to everyone for attending on at least here it's a little gray Saturday, but we're real excited about being able to share a little bit more about our fairly new 2 for 2 membership growth program. And so I'm going to see if I can't share my screen now, and we'll get into it.
Brad,
And
may I introduce you? May I introduce
Sure.
you first? I think many of us in the room recognize you by a little box on our screen. Someday you get to see Brad. I think if you were at International, you probably did get to see him. Brad,
Yes.
I've seen title as several different things. So what is your official title and what does it mean?
Well, I officially call myself Director of Hoopla and Chief Whipping Boy, but the official title is Area Director, North America 3, Global Membership, and used to be Education. Now we're changing it to Engagement. I just learned that yesterday. So probably has something to do with the new Engage platform that we're going to be gravitating towards early in 2023. So
Given that
anyways,
time, no wonder.
area director will suffice.
We welcome you to Nebraska-Iowa Divisions 21 and 22 North.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the wonderful opportunity and your gracious hospitality and working with me to make this happen, and to Lisa for getting this sort of recorded out there. And so I just want to go through this sort of expanded deck and all. So hopefully, I don't know, that's showing screen too. So maybe I can go down to PowerPoint show. Well, that shows two. I don't know why there's a number showing up there, but we'll see how it works there. There we go. I'm ready to rock and roll with you. So anyways, this really is a program. I don't know why we should have had a V8 many years ago and thought about rolling out a program that is so easy, so simple for every member of clubs to get involved with. I know, I guess I'd like a quick show of hands. How many of you in your clubs have a membership committee and a membership chair?
Yes.
Pretty good at out. Well, kudos to you. I think about 40 to 45% during recent years of our clubs have reported those. And so I often say that if your club isn't receiving regular communications from Kiwanis International and all of our collateral materials and all, just give me a holler and let me know who that person is, because if we don't have their contact information and their names, we can't get them the vital information that will help them be successful. But you know, this is really a program that's really to help you in terms of membership growth month by month and person to person. So some people have just thought that it's just way too easy to administer. So let me get to my. So I wanted to start off just with a little bit of reality check, because I think it sort of helps put things in perspective. The good news, because I always like to start on a positive note, is that only about 3% of folks in North America belong to a service club. I think that's just atrocious, but it does point out the opportunity that as you begin inviting more of your friends and neighbors and church folks and others that you may be involved with in community pursuits, that chances are that they probably aren't affiliated with one of the service organizations. And we all know that Kiwanis is the best because we have that laser beam focus on children and youth and improving our communities and everything. So if you get that occasional no, just know that there's another yes around the corner, because there's 97% out there to draw into our organization. Now the bad news Boyd side of me comes about, and I want to report that most of our new clubs that fold and most of our members that leave for one reason or another usually do so between years 4 and 5. And that's why it's really critical. You guys have done such a good job of adding new clubs, particularly a couple of communities where we had clubs in the past and we brought them back thanks to Gary Watnam and a lot of your Lieutenant Governor colleagues there. And so we want to make sure that we keep checking in with them. We solicit and secure a club coach for those clubs, but they only have a 2-year commitment. And it's obvious that we've got to stay in touch for the next 5 years or so that we can make sure that they continue to ramp up their service to the community, particularly coming out of this prolonged pandemic. And I think we're still wallowing in it to a certain extent, but we know that a lot of community needs have changed quite a bit. And so it's really important to make sure that clubs are continuously looking at how they can improve their service to kids in the community. The average club has 26.3. I don't know where that 0.3 is. I'm vertically challenged, so maybe I'm part of that. But at any rate, the median club size is 21, so we'd love to get that growing up. The average member age is 61. Thank goodness for women. They not only do so much to help lead our organization, but they also bring down our age a little bit. So those are the ages there, 63 for men and 57 for women. And the good news, coming back to good news, because I always like to end on a positive note as well, is that as we bring on new clubs and new members, pardon me, the average age of new members is 47. So a lot of times people want to go for the holy grail of the young professionals or emerging leaders, and really what probably is our best spot is for those empty nesters. And but I always encourage clubs, look at what your median age is for your club, and then try to go 5 to 10 years younger. Do it in baby steps. And then once you attract those that are 5 to 10 years younger, then go another 5 to 10. That's a lot easier than trying to get a club whose median age is 65, trying to become a club that's predominantly attracting 25-year-olds. That's an uphill battle there. So show of hands again. What if you could add just one new member each month? What more could you do to help those kiddos and improve the communities with 12 more members during the year? I don't think I've come across anybody in any club that wouldn't love to have 12 new members over the year. And so this is the real easy sort of slow, continuous way that you can bring in new members. This isn't to take the place of any membership drives or any other endeavors that you have, but it's just another way to approach growing our membership base. And so we want to chat for a minute. So again, I'm going to ask for some quick show of hands out there. Have you ever wished there were more members to help with service projects? I'm guessing so. Put those hands up. Yep. Does your club ever suffer from that 80-20 rule where 20% of the folks are doing 80% of the heavy lifting? Yeah, yes. And I've even adjusted that to the 90-10 during the pandemic. I think it's become even more challenging for us. Are over half of your members attending club meetings regularly? I know that a lot of clubs, as they've returned to in-person meetings, are having a hard time of getting folks back. And so we've had one of the clubs in my division I was lieutenant governor for, had a couple of members, actually they had 6 members that over the span of a few weeks offered $25 to the service account if they would, once they get up to 20 people coming back in person. And they have such great camaraderie and all. It didn't take all that long, but they also had some extra money for service and it really served them well. So I don't know if that's bribery or extortion or whatever, but you might want to try that as well. Another question, show of hands, has your club had to beg folks to become officers in recent years? I'm hearing that's more of a challenge both at the club and at the district level. I'm going to Texas, Oklahoma decon in a couple weeks, and they still are searching for 17 lieutenant governors 2 weeks out from the training before district convention. So it's real.
Yeah.
As your club, if your club sponsors service leadership programs, are there more than just a couple members involved? I see in too many clubs, there's only 1 or 2 people that really, members that really get involved with the service leadership program. So if you can't get more of your members to go to the service leadership program events and everything, try to get those kids and those action clubbers to come to your club meetings and find a way to make a big deal out of it so that more of your members really get to know all the great things that they're doing. It really adds to the enthusiasm of your club. Has your club been recruiting new members on a regular ongoing basis, a routine? That's what this program's all about. And would your club benefit by recruiting more hands for service? And I often say that if you're tired of hearing me yammer about membership, we don't need new members. We just need more hands for service. So you can rename the committee the More Hands for Service Committee, and have everyone in the club be on the prospecting, member prospecting committee. So, what's your club experience in recent years? Again, this goes into a lot of that 80-20 rule, the repeat officers, poor attendance, drop in membership. A lot of clubs will tell me, well, we only lost 2 members last year and 2 the year before. I'm like, yes, but over 5 years, you've lost 10 members. If you're a club of 25, all of a sudden you're down to being under charter strength and everything. So those little drops can really add up in a very short amount of time. So we want to talk a little bit about who has your club lost. And so, this is just a very small cross section of some folks that I heard. I like to point out here, particularly clergy. I know back when I joined Kiwanis, well, actually I was in Key Club and CKI, but when I joined Kiwanis like 15 some years ago, we had both a clergy person and a rabbi in our club, in the downtown Indy Club, and now we don't have either. And I know that they do, get rerouted from time to time, every 18 to 24 months. But again, make that a corporate member. I know I hate that name, corporate. Call them placeholder members. You want to make sure that your houses of worship in your community, particularly those that have youth programs, are represented in your Kiwanis Club. So this is the cover for the 2 for 2 guidebook that came out to every club, to the club secretary back in mid-March. It's also available, so you can print your own or just bookmark it on your computer at kiwanis.org/242. And you need to spell out the words and hang them all together there. But that's very accessible. It's a 12-page booklet, and it really is sort of more of a workbook or a guidebook than anything. That really sort of helps you walk through the program. And so let's get started. What's 2 for 2? And really the goal is, as I said, is, simpler. I should have had that V8, because it's just 2 members going after 2 prospects every month and hoping to yield at least one of those as a new member. And we think that that's very doable. And we already have up on the on that URL, the short link there that I gave you. If you go there, there actually is a contest. So if your club gets engaged in doing the 2 for 2 program, you can submit that on a monthly basis and hopefully win the drawing for a $200 gift voucher for the Kiwanis store. So, but our goal is really just to make sure that meeting prospects is fun, that we help to make club growth manageable or more sustained over time, because we know if you have little victories every month, you'll feel a whole lot better, particularly when you do some of your big membership drives, and you'll really be creating more awareness and creating a better pool of candidates to join your club. And then we want to make sure that that's a routine, continuous club operation. So we know, the fact of the matter is that people join people. We look for like-minded friends. We all are in Kiwanis, I believe, because we really want to help future generations. We know that children and their youth are in need of our services, but they also, that we can leave an imprint and perhaps leave a legacy for them. They make our lives more meaningful by being able to serve them and coach them and nurture them. And so we want to provide that way to organize your efforts and everything. So we really encourage, while a lot of clubs have very robust meetings and are have great fellowship and all, we really think that it's better suited for the 2 people that are selected each month to do this on a monthly basis, that they reach out to 2 prospects of their own, and perhaps even get together the 4 of them for a coffee or for lunch or whatever. Because a lot of times, if you get to a quieter place where you can really talk about their life's pursuits and what they're interested in, that is a lot better than going through all the official rigmarole that we have in a club meeting, and a lot of the acronyms sort of get in the way and those types of things. So then all you have to do is reach out to those prospects and then invite them to an introductory meeting or a service project. And I certainly don't want to discount service projects. There's no better vehicle, I don't think, than a service project to introduce someone to what I affectionately call pure Kiwanis goodness. And just think that one new member is going to yield, more hands, more monies. It's going to help garner better awareness in your community. It's going to lead to more networking connections and skill sets and ideas. And that's what I love particularly about our push for greater diversity is we have a whole new group of people that have all sorts of ideas and connections and things that they can offer to the club. And then that also yields more knowledge of our community needs. And as I said, during the pandemic, we know that a lot of those have shifted to a certain extent. And I know there in Nebraska-Iowa, you do such a great job with food sustenance, food insecurities, and that certainly is one of the hot topics coming out from the pandemic. It's just amazing how that has really multiplied, particularly with higher gas prices, higher grocery costs, all those types of things. There are more needs than ever. And so again, this is from the workbook. I won't belabor it there, but it just walks you through how to identify some members, what your focus on impact is. I really hope that every club, before they go to meet with prospects, has, I don't care if it's just a little punch list of bullet points of what service projects you do, what community groups, nonprofits you support financially in the community, those types of things. But that's a great leave behind. And there actually is, if you go out to the Kiwanis brand guide, kiwanis.org/brand, we can actually help you with the format for putting that together. But make sure that, and then here in the little tan box there, we also talk about the corporate member brainstorming. And as I said, I really don't like that name. I would prefer to call them placeholder memberships, because to me, they're for organizations that ought to have a seat at the Kiwanis table whenever you meet. And so that could be, churches with youth groups. It's any of your United Way or social service agencies. That's why we have great affiliations with scouting organizations and with the Ys and with the Boys and Girls Clubs, those types of things. So the other really great thing about the corporate membership is that then they are already listed in the name of that organization. So they get their name splashed around a lot, and they can change who their representative is. If one person moves out, then another one is slotted in, and we just change the names of who is representing them. But the name of the member is always in the name of the company or the nonprofit or other organization. And so there I shared a few things. I like to provide a little bit more here. This isn't in the booklet, but I like to go after local business partners, people that you've worked with. A lot of our communities have shared workspaces. They call them different entrepreneurial hubs, different things like that. But a lot of young people are just starting out with a great idea and a zeal for making things happen. And so they rent just a very small square footage in one of these shared workspaces. And then as they grow it, they can expand, and eventually they'll be helped by moving out in their own brick and mortar place. And also it's a great place to get Kiwanis out there. They all have bulletin boards. So put your flyers there, talk to the either leasing agent or their facility manager, and see if you can't maybe go to one of their monthly tenant meetings and do a little quick push about how they could do some good for their community. And perhaps, they want to do something other than your club. So consider making them a satellite group. And maybe they have a keen interest in the green movement with the environment. Let them do that, and that will just add more strength and flavor to your Kiwanis Club. As I mentioned, the youth-focused nonprofits, the in-kind service folks that help you in all, your fundraising project folks, and then again, your speakers. A lot of times once we bring in people, one other idea is to look on LinkedIn or in your local papers. And a lot of times at the very back of a newspaper, they'll have in very small print all the legal sort of things of new companies that have just incorporated. And so I've been with a couple of clubs that on either a monthly or quarterly basis, they invite any new business owner or anyone that's moved into a top position in one of the nonprofits to come and do a 2-minute sort of push explanation of what their business is all about. And by doing so at the meeting, they also learn a lot about what Kiwanis does and your reach and your impact. And a lot of times that turns into them joining Kiwanis and all. So we want to make sure that you also work on your 1-minute speech. Some call it an elevator speech. For myself, I donned a cape and my tights and went out as Super Kiwanian, and I told my club, you just need to know the 3 S's and then make the story your own. So what's your favorite service project? What's your favorite scholarship program? And what is your favorite SLP? And then talk about those. And that's a very easy way to do a 1-minute speech. And then really talk to them sincerely about really what your Kiwanis moments or your aha moments have been in terms of what I call pure Kiwanis goodness. It's always brings folks around to be interested in knowing why you're passionate about the organization. I also, before that, quite often when I meet with prospective members, I don't even bring up Kiwanis initially. I ask them to share a little bit about what's their favorite local charity of choice. And then that will sometimes then direct me as to how I can weave Kiwanis into the conversation. Here in the workbook, we talk about how to make that appointment work, the importance of listening. We all know that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and it's important to know that the word listen is also the same letters that silent is comprised of, and so that's a great hint for all of us. And then you can actually, in the workbook, sketch out your 1-minute speech. And then over on the right-hand side, you can actually talk about, gives you a couple ideas of how to meet with your prospects every month, those 2 members that are being tasked for next month, and then how they can identify some of those prospects going forward. We also give you ideas on how to make the appointment work and, what you might want to take with you. I believe that all you really need is to take an application, Kiwanis.org application. There actually is an online one, so people that are tech savvy and your younger folks might want to just fill one out online and take a notebook. The nice part about having 2 members maybe meet with the 2 prospects all together is that one can be more of the observer of taking some notes or whatever, as the other sort of leads the conversation, or you can take turns with that at certain junctures of the meeting. I also, over in the very light blue there, like to take along, as I said, that listing of your local service projects, the impact that your club has in the community. I love to provide maybe a quick snapshot of your district service project, if applicable, and particularly what you're doing with food sustenance and food insecurities. And then Kiwanis International, you can grab off the website there, the Just the Fact sheet, which gives all the numbers in terms of our global reach and all of our service leadership programs. And then we actually take it to the level, just like we do when we open a new club, of writing down. We have cards there where you can do a prospect report. And that's really, as Sue and others know, that's very keenly needed to be done, because a lot of times the people that follow up aren't necessarily always the folks that met with the people. So it could be that your 2 members meeting with 2 prospects might be turning in these cards to your membership committee or your membership committee chair. It could even fall eventually to a lieutenant governor to follow up. And so you want to make some notes. Were they in Key Club before? What is that favorite charity of choice? Maybe something about their families. Do they have 2 children in the rough ages that they are? Are they big into being soccer supporters, or is it swimming that their kids do? Those types of things. Are they a coach for a little league? That type of thing. And then you just need to schedule those appointments, and then this is where you update the status of those meetings. And I think it's also important to note that as you're doing it, you might note that some people freely tell you that they wouldn't be available on the day that your club meets, or maybe at the time of day that your club meets. And so make a note of that, and then keep a list. And once you cobble together a few of those, that might be the excellent opportunity to add a satellite group to your club. So if any of you want to learn a little bit about what clubs can do, I mean, there's information out on our website about satellite clubs, but I would suggest going out on Mr. Google to Port Townsend, Washington State, and Liz Quayle there, they've added not only one, but they're a traditional weekly lunch club. I spoke there a few months ago, but they've added a satellite group that meets in the morning a couple times a month, and one that meets after work and in the evening. And again, they have their own service projects. They help with the club service projects, and it again just gives you more avenues for service to the community and more opportunities to meet people where they are and overcome some of the impediments that maybe are there in being able to join your club in particular. And so then we start talking about all these different people, and we just wanted to float out some ideas. So actually in here, there are some lines there where you can actually start jotting down. So as I go through these real rapid fire, I'd suggest that if a name comes right to mind, jot it down real quick, and you'll already start to put together your prospect list. It all begins though with this roster analysis worksheet. And again, this is out at kiwanis.org/professions. It is just a simple brain dump of occupations. And so what's best to do, you could do this either individually, a club leader could do it, you could do it at a club board meeting. I like to do it at one of our regular club meetings because there's more members there that have more connections out in the community. And we always know that if you have that one-on-one connection, it's better to try to reel in someone that you already know than just blindly going after whoever isn't represented in your club. But what you'll be doing is going through here and marking the ones. So if you've got an architect and you've got an exterminator and maybe the taxidermist, I've only met 2 in North America clubs that have a taxidermist, but they are out there. Then mark through those. More importantly, you're going to be looking at the ones that are left behind, and those I call are the missing in action, and those are the folks that you want to go after. So then holler out the names of some of these and say, okay, we don't have a florist. Does anybody do a lot of business with a florist and all? Maybe it's the person in your club who is director at a funeral home, because we have a lot of members that are funeral directors, and so maybe they've got a connection to go after. And so this one is really sort of an important slide to me, because it's the first time that we actually did a deep dive into what our top professions are in the Kiwanis-verse. And so over on the left-hand side, that is in rank order, how we've collectively jumped those. So, you know, if I were a betting man, I would have said that we attract educators the most. That's not true. Our insurance, our banking folks, our wealth management advisors, those types of people have seen the value of being plugged into the community. They sponsor a lot of our community events, those types of things. And so we have over 8,000 members that fall into that first category. Getting on to educators, we have over 7,000 educators. And I can tell you my top choice is to try to find a way to every year find out who's retiring as a teacher in your school district and give them that summer off for good behavior. They deserve that more than ever. But then in August, September, come back, because they're going to probably start missing those kiddos and their interaction. Come back and invite them to get involved with the service project, or take them along to one of your SLP meetings. And they will see that Kiwanis can be a viable way for them to stay plugged in with school children and really add the value of their expertise and their passion and everything. And then that third category of government folks in maybe a parks director, those types of things, we have over 4,500 members there. So I've got the actual numbers for all of those. But again, the reason for doing this is to say, if you're going to have limited time to go after new members, why not go to the people who are your most likely prospects? So start at the top there and look if you've got bankers and insurance folks and those wealth management companies represented in your club, and educators and that. Those are going to be a lot easier to attract probably than those that perhaps are in that funeral death services area, or hospitality or maintenance, those ends of things. Over here on the right-hand side, I also added some folks to not forget, you know, relatives. A lot of clubs have some discounted dues that they've been able to work out arrangements for bringing in spouses or significant others, all your friends and neighbors, your church people that you do. I've loved Facebook because it's reintroduced me to a lot of my old school chums. And so again, if they're still here in my community, I can tell them about Kiwanis, and hopefully by seeing those way too many posts that I have on Facebook, they might eventually wear down and decide that they'll join me and experience what pure Kiwanis goodness is all about. So again, who does your club need? These are the ones that we've sort of had some fun starting out with. So, the expert, I like to start there. Who is someone in your community who knows about what's going on in terms of child development? Someone that maybe is a social worker, or someone that has been involved in the board of some nonprofits, perhaps it's a foster parent, those types of folks and all. That expertise would be gold to your club, because they'd be able to bring in all sorts of resources and perhaps point you in the direction of some more meaningful service projects. The workhorses. Your club, I'm sure, are full of workhorses. And I always love when I do go after a new member and the prospect says, well, I'm too busy. I'm like, bingo, that's exactly the person we're looking for. Those that are busy get things done. They're organized, they make things happen. And that's not a valid excuse for not joining Kiwanis. The techies, gosh, I could use this, and we could have used it the last time we were going to do this gathering, but it worked out okay. So again, it's a great way to reel in particularly maybe some younger folks, although I know a gentleman in his 90s who can swim circles around me in terms of social connectivity. Communicators. I've got a master's in journalism, and so I've always valued the communicators, because they not only can help with social media perhaps, but in this day and age, too many of our clubs are still mired in the printed word. And as much as I value and love the printed word, people aren't reading anything anymore. You've got to go to photos, you've got to go to videos, and we all have that umbilical cord in our hands, that smartphone that can take videos. It doesn't have to be an edited, slick production or whatever. It's more genuine. I loved what you guys did. I think it was back a couple of years ago, your district convention on the 100th anniversary, where Lisa and others worked to get little video snippets from every club, and they shared their pride. And I've talked about that ad nauseum to other districts and suggested that's a great way to get out there. Just survey your members at a club meeting, say, what has been your Kiwanis moment? Why do you belong to Kiwanis? That type of thing. Motivators, who's that positive person? And as I always say, I used to say, I believe that the glass is half full rather than half empty. The fact is it's refillable. And so is our membership. So look for those positive people in your community. And we're darn lucky to have a cup to refill to begin with. Creatives, where can you find creative, innovative people that perhaps think outside the box? And really what I say, we've got more permission from our members now to do things a little bit differently, to try some new things. Things don't have to be as perfect in this world of Zoom. Heck, almost 3 years later, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it, because they keep shifting things around just to keep me on my toes. But again, throw some stuff at the wall. If it doesn't stick, throw some more stuff at the wall. There's really nothing in the Kiwaniverse that we can't try. And I'm very proud of our organization for being open to that. Looking for those connectors. And those are the people that just have that walking Rolodex, although a lot of people don't know what a Rolodex is anymore, but I'm aging myself. But who are those people that just happen to know how to connect the dots and seem to be out there and very aware of what's going on in your community? Number crunchers, not my forte, but I admire those. I am thankful that we have those, and particularly those that maybe can track year after year. Most clubs I visit don't even know how many scholarships they've given away over the umpteen years that their club has been in existence, or what that total aggregate amount is of that, or how many kids have gone through the SLP program, or how many action clubbers they've served through the years, and those types of things. You need somebody that's a number cruncher or an archivist, historian, to track those types of things. And then lastly, and I don't mean to put it on their social butterfly, but who just seems to know everyone and attract everyone. We have a woman in my community, Linda Goki, that I keep working on, because she just seems to throw every party in her house and seems to be out there every day, going out in the community and doing great things to support others. And so they're a great candidate pool to go after. And then lastly, here in the workbook towards the end, we actually have a fun way that your club can keep track of your progress, with sort of filling in the circles there and everything. And then we actually, in the little tan box there, give you ideas on how you can keep folks coming back. So it doesn't end when you get someone who says, hey, I'd love to give Kiwanis a whirl and become a member. So this gives you at least the first 3 months how we can get them plugged in and make it a meaningful experience going forward. And so again, our goal, as stated in the workbook, is to at least get half of the folks that we visit with every month, or at least 1 out of 2 every month, and over a year that will add up to 12, and then continue to host your other membership events, and we'll touch on that for just a second here too. So we also then talk about those first 3 months, how you can keep them coming back. And we don't want to discount the importance of member orientation, the onboarding, and getting them engaged in your club and in the community through Kiwanis service. This is a quote that I believe that certain quotes, books, records, music, movies come and land in my lap at appropriate moments. Thank you, Lord. And this one came to me over the holidays, and it's, a little bit hard hitting. The magic you're seeking or looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And I think that's true. We're a volunteer-led organization. I'm just staff support. And I know that a lot of you have different pursuits. Some of you are still working. Some of you are working just as hard as you were when you were working and being retired, those types of things. And so I know there are health challenges and family needs and other things that come about. But I think that if we each look in the mirror and say, have we been avoiding working on membership? Have we just been letting things slide through the pandemic? Now's the time to redouble our efforts to get back out there and look for some folks. And it does take a little bit of work, but I've seen time and time again. I just worked with a Golden K Club in Austin, Minnesota, met with them back in January. They put their mind to it. They told me 2 months ago at convention that they had added 11 new members, and now the other day they wrote and said they're up to 17. So if a Golden K Club can add 17 new members, any club can do it if they put their mind to it. And this is just a great program, the 2 for 2 program, because it sort of spreads the opportunity and the work, so to speak, on a very limited basis. Every member, if you don't have a club of 24 to do it, you might have to, take 2 months of doing it, but still it's not a cumbersome exercise to adopt this program. So I wanted to throw in a couple things. This actually came out of the brand guide to give you a little value add. These are sort of 3 groups that we believe are sort of great prospects, and I'm going to start from younger to older. But youthful professionals, I think most of them prefer to be calling emerging leaders. And my reason for mentioning this is a lot of times you can maybe hook them by having a special club meeting program or a workshop or something where perhaps you get one of your members to talk about, how do young people that have just come out of college or university or a tech school, how do they get plugged into community efforts? How can they get on a committee? How can they get on a board and get involved? Those types of things. Or perhaps it's having them, helping them with their resume, or how to do a better job of networking. The workhorses are those that are really already in the mix of things. Usually they're both getting their careers established and growing, but they also have started a family. And so they're really torn in a lot of different directions. But again, you can attract those workhorses by really sharing what a great networking opportunity Kiwanis can be, and a great sense of fulfillment of giving back to the community as much or as little. We give people sabbaticals if they get busy with other things or work gets in the way. We'll let them take a little breather for a while and then come back at. But again, workshops that might appeal to them in terms of how to deal with latchkey children, or perhaps how to deal with prioritizing and getting more work-life balance, that type of thing. And then lastly, the seasoned volunteers. Those are usually over 50, but I love this group, and I think they're probably our sweet spot because a lot of times their kids have gone off to college, or perhaps they've graduated and moved out on their own, those types of things. And so I see that a lot of these folks are sort of saying, hey, in my next act here, I really am looking to move from what I call success to significance. And so, yes, I've done some really cool things professionally, and that gave me a sense of satisfaction. I've had the satisfaction of raising children and doing a pretty darn good job of that and everything. What am I going to do now that can really contribute to future generations of good folks doing good things in our community? And Kiwanis is that vehicle. Wanted to throw in a couple of those other ideas that have been bouncing around in terms of other membership ideas. The Kiwanis One Day, usually it's the fourth Saturday in October. I've heard rumor that we might not be making as much of that of it, but I love a 1+1 day where every member brings at least one, if not more, folks interested, and they do you give them 15 minutes of coffee and donuts in the morning, and then you do 45 minutes of light mulching or some sort of planting or something outdoors, hopefully. And then all you have to do is call first thing Monday morning and say, hey, are you going to join right now, or do I need to bring you to a darn meeting to seal the deal? You know, don't give them any wiggle room. They're already signed, sealed, delivered. They've seen you in action and they want to be a part of that. Or perhaps it's just a coffee clutch with chamber friends, like here in the lower left-hand corner there. We did that during the pandemic down in Texas and it worked well. Or some of the friendly rivalry incentive contests that different clubs or different divisions have done with clubs in their area. Want to talk about a few tips and tricks. You know, I'm going to be adding, and I'd love for any of you that feel moved to take a look at that membership roster analysis piece that I showed you, to maybe add some more professions. This was done probably about 15 years, and I think it really needs to be updated. And I've already added this on mine, like, you know, stay-at-home dads. 15 years ago, we didn't really think about that as a group, but a lot of those stay-at-home dads could probably find 1 hour a month to get involved with service and would love to be able to do something to help the community, those types of things. So I'm going to be adding more. These are just a few that I quickly added to the mix for the roster analysis worksheet. Want to talk a little bit about DEI. This is very important. It's very timely, but heck, it's been there all along. And the most important thing is to look at that roster. Once you do that roster analysis, then start looking at your demographics of, you know, what representation do you have in terms of various age groups, ethnicities, those types of things. And then look at, you can very easily find through a Google search, you know, what's the makeup and the complexion of your community and how closely aligned is your club. And I think most of us have some work to do in this regard. And so I wanted to give some ideas. Actually, if you want to invite me back at some point for our governor-elects right after the convention, I did a session on this whole topic of how to find folks through community leadership programs, through actual sororities and fraternities. I know in my little corner of the world, I don't list on LinkedIn my fraternity in college and everything, but you better believe, particularly like in the African American community, those sororities go on, and it's a great social networking outlet for those women going forward. And I found like 60 different sororities. So you can put into LinkedIn the name of your city or town and that name of the sorority. Hopefully we're going to be posting that up on our website soon, all of those. I sat next to a woman who's governor-elect in the Philippines. I had 3 that are service fraternities just for Filipinos, and she was going crazy because she was able to look up some cities there right as we were meeting and come up with some prospective members. So anyways, I don't want to belabor this, but you know, type into Google the name of your town and then put in women-owned businesses or veteran-owned or minority-owned or those different types of things that you're looking for, and you'll find 4 or 5 prospects that probably aren't members of your local Chamber of Commerce. And again, a lot of these are in directories. I've only found the Christian Business Directory online, but I mean in person, but all these others are available online. Other membership tips: if you can't get that chamber list, you know, go looking for banks, any of those top professions, and put in the name of your city or town, and you can develop your own database of prospective people. The other ones I love to do is to go out on our high school websites and look at the athletic boosters. Chances are, if they're a booster of that, or perhaps one of your arts programs in the schools, chances are they might have some budget to be a booster of your club as well, or to at least join. Your vendors of choice, start where there's some low-hanging fruit with whoever you do business with banking-wise, your CPA that perhaps does your audit on an annual basis. If you've got a foundation with your club, who invests those monies, those types of things. And then look at collect through the year wherever you go to an arts program or to a nonprofit annual meeting, and collect those programs and see who's advertising or sponsoring them. And so you also want to look at some of those interests and connect with those. So before I meet with a prospective member, I always do a quick look at Facebook, at their profile, their posts, LinkedIn, and do an online Google search to find what we might have in common or how I might be able to direct our conversation. Here's a couple of showings of, at a local ballpark. Look at all those companies and organizations. They're all advertising there. Chances are they're supporting youth in your community. They should support Kiwanis. You want to, this is a tip that I got from a couple of the clubs. They actually ask on their application for a new member to list their favorite charity of choice. Then they give a $20, they don't tell them it's only $20, but they give a $20 tribute donation to that local cause. The neat part, they're listed in about every annual report in town. The new member gets a letter acknowledging their gift and is surprised that the new club is thought highly enough to support their charity of choice. And then they ask that new member to pair up not with the person who brought them into Kiwanis, but to get to know another veteran member and perhaps do a quick and easy service project over the next few months. I mentioned the satellite anymore, so I'm not gonna do that, although I will point out single focus passions. So we've just opened our second billiards club in Illinois, Eastern Iowa, where they had the idea of teaching billiards to keep kids off the streets, and then they do some service as well with that. We're working on a bikers club down in Texas with motorcycle aficionados. Almost any group, if you have a quilters group, they could be a satellite group, if not their own full-fledged club if you get enough folks to join. One of the things that I've done through the pandemic, and this actually started as a idea for a fundraiser, but as I got to ruminating over it, I realized that, boy, this would be a great way to orient new members. I've been dissatisfied for a long time with the way that we do orientation, at least in the clubs I've been involved with. And it's usually just a bunch of people sitting around the table and talking way too long because they're passionate about their committee or their service project, and it's information overload and everything. So I have taken to stuffing a couple of new members into my car and going for a joyride. It's an hour long or a 45-minute jaunt through our community, and I point out the Walmart where we do the bell ringing for the Salvation Army, and the schools where we have our K Kids and our Builders Club programs, or a Key Club, or here's the YMCA that we support, and there's the Boys and Girls Club, those types of things. And it's just a great way to bring that alive. And I've actually had a new member who told me that the next week his wife and he were looking for a new home and drove around, and he pointed out all these places, and his wife decided that she wanted to join Kiwanis because it was really cool, all the different ways in which they impacted the community. And then here are some 2-for-2 resources. I won't belabor those. I'm going to be giving you this PowerPoint presentation to pass along or post or whatever, but particularly if you're on, you don't even have to be on Facebook, but if you go out to Facebook groups, there's a great little group called Kiwanis International Membership Leaders, and we post 2 or 3 times a week, and Kiwanians from all over the Kiwaniverse chime in with their thoughts and observations. So it's a great way to maybe pick up some quick tips that you could put onto your Facebook page or send out as a post or whatever to keep that fresh and lively and keep you motivated about membership. Actually, I'm also going to be sending you, this is a brand new document. I don't even think it's posted on the KI website yet, but I took and put together some tips for every month of the year, as well as some year-round evergreen things. And again, these are just quick little factoids or ideas that you could post onto your social media pages and all, and make it a lot easier for you to communicate the 2-for-2 program. And so I just want to wrap up with a little motivation here, because that's what I'm all about. I find Kiwanians are hungry and thirsty for tips, best practices, new approaches, those types of things. I hope I've provided a few of those. And I think they're always looking for inspiration. And you all inspire me when I get to visit with all of you and learn of what all you're doing, and look in advance at what is going on in Division 21 and 22, North and South. I'm way motivated, and it reinvigorates my passion for Kiwanis. But my mom lo and behold, I've come to find out that she may have plagiarized Ben Franklin, but I like the way she said it better. So I'm going to use the old Patty Boyd reminder that she continuously shared with me. And I think it's really pertinent as we're still coming through this pandemic. When you get wrapped up in yourself, you become a very small package. And I think there have been a lot of folks, particularly when we had the mandatory work from home, shutter in place thing, people were thinking about, what am I doing with my life? And have I really done anything to be part of the solution in my community? And I think that I'm bullishly optimistic that there's a huge opportunity for people. I know just looking on the Nextdoor app, I've had neighbors who said, hey, I live alone and I could probably go to the store for you. I could pick up that prescription and things. And I'm able to point them to a Kiwanis Club that's just a mile down the road and tell them about a service project they're doing. So I think there's huge opportunities to get folks to really lead into that success to significance equation. Our founding was back in 1915, and our greatest growth spurt was in the roaring 20s. Just look at how many, I know Lisa can tell you how many clubs have been celebrating 100th anniversaries throughout this decade and all. And I really believe that we have this huge opportunity to take, we've been beleaguered for 2 years or whatever through the pandemic, but we can take the next 8 years of this decade and make this maybe not the roaring 20s. I want to make it the soaring 20s for membership growth in Kiwanis. I think that it's very doable, and I'm way excited about joining with all of you through this 2 for 2 program to make that happen. Just imagine, I think we have around 8,000 Kiwanis clubs in the Kiwaniverse. If we would start out the year in September in October, early November, and every club officer, every district officer were to bring in just one new member that month, just think we'd probably have 10 to 12,000 new members to start our year off right. And so I think there's huge opportunities. It's a little bit of a daunting challenge, but I think we're up to it. I think that really our brighter days are ahead, and I want to commend all of you for being those bright beacons of hope in your individual communities. People are counting on us. It's not just the kids anymore. The parents are counting on us. They know that we fill in and help to really nurture their kiddos along the way. The folks who are with our handy, capable young adults in Action Club just know how vitally important it is for them to be able to give back to their community instead of always being, sort of treated as though they have to be taken care of and everything. And they want that warm, fuzzy feeling of giving to others as well. And I think the future is so bright that we're going to need to wear some of those shades, particularly here in the summer months, as it's been in the 90s around here. I worked for public broadcasting for 5 years, and Mr. Rogers is always an inspiration to me. Mr. McFeely just lives up the road, David Newell, and I love this quote of his that it's real easy for people to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. And that's where that pondering we did during the pandemic comes to roost, because we know that, as Mr. Rogers said, we see people who see the need and they respond, and those are the heroes. And every one of you is a hero and a heroine for taking on Kiwanis and making it a better world for all of us. And a lot of times I get into trouble, and I always say I expect a pink slip on my chair on Monday morning, because I think that little moniker that even is on our headquarters, Mecca, there says serving the children of the world. I really think that that's a little mild-mannered and understated and everything. We are nurturing, encouraging, molding, shaping, advising, cajoling perhaps future generations of community leaders. And guess what? There are legacies. You're the role models. So we serve one another, and we help one another, and we inspire one another. And those service leadership programs, those members are our bright beacons of hope. Once our turn at bat is up, they're the next one that will be meeting community needs and really doing a great job to bring this world into more harmony and everything. So nurturing their community leadership potential, that really moves us and really inspires and reinvigorates our interest in the world. What's our ROI? In business, we know it's return on investment. Hey, ours is ripples of impact. And we've got worldwide waves of kindness and inspiration and projects for generations to come. And so my old friend from your district, Bob Mitchell, gotta love him. I loved his saying of a club meeting without a guest is a failure. I added service project in there because I believe that they're a great vehicle and all. I know some people say we can't say failure in Kiwanis, so we prettied it up by saying your club meeting's best when you bring a guest. Honky tonk. It's a failure if you don't bring more guests. If we don't have more butts and seats, we'll never convert them to becoming members. So get a guest to every meeting. And so we want to make sure that when you go to a club meeting, ask who's brought a guest and acknowledge them. And at the end of the meeting, who's bringing the guest to the next meeting or service project. And lastly, I want to leave you with this little gem that I found on a post a couple of years ago. And it really sums up the Kiwanis experience. You know, anybody can join an organization, but belonging to Kiwanis, that's how a member feels. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get. You know, joining is just purely a transaction, but belonging, man, that's an experience. That's something that you savor over time. It just keeps on sort of playing in your mind over and over again on repeat shuffle. Joining's rational. Belonging, it's emotional. It tugs at your heartstrings. It's those Kiwanis moments, those aha moments that just keep getting to you, that bring the hair on the back of your neck up and sometimes even make me tear up a little bit. And joining's episodic, but belonging lasts longer, perhaps forever. And so I just want to thank you. For more information, go to Kiwanis.org 2for2 or contact me. And if you have any questions, comments, insights, I'd be glad to take those. I'll stop my share and turn it back over to you. Thanks for your time and attention.
He's right there. If you got questions, now's the time to ask.
Information overload, I think. I gave you too much. Overkill.
Yeah, you inspire me every time I hear you. That was wonderful.
Well, ditto. That's I'm inspired this weekend because I'm sandwiching you between 2 sessions of training future lieutenant governors in the Indiana district. So at least I don't have too far to travel to meet up with them after this gig is over. But I wanted to honor my commitment to Marcia and Keith and Lisa, and thank all of you for your willingness to hear some new ideas. Hopefully it sparks an interest in getting involved in this membership growth opportunity. I really think it's the simplest membership program that we've rolled out, and it's something that every club ought to adopt. And I would really encourage you maybe to set up even there in your 2 divisions there of 21 and 22 north and south, to maybe set up some sort of friendly little competition or rivalry or something to see, you know, who can endorse the program and roll it out the quickest and start bringing in new members. As I said, this month's winner for the $200 gift prize was from Austin, Minnesota, and I happen to know Laura, who's pictured on there because she has been a lieutenant governor, and they're just wonderful people. And so it really shows that the program is working, and I think that it can work for all of you. It's pretty much a fail-safe program, and it's a great way to get beyond just always sticking it to a membership committee or a membership chair to carry down all the weight, because we all should be in the membership business and particularly looking for prospective members. I don't care if you aren't comfortable meeting with them or sealing the deal, making the sale, but at least you've got to be willing to provide some names of folks that you've come into contact with that you think might be great people to add to your club.
I'd really like to comment on the balance of your presentation. It's so good to see that much of the general information and the real specific items, and so much detail that we can use. I really like the idea that it involves teamwork, and I see it as being very successful, even though I haven't tried it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up half a dozen ideas I'll be able to use in suggesting names of people. And do you think an initial invitation just to attend a meeting is a good place to start?
So long as your meeting is one that has a great deal of fellowship and camaraderie, which most
Yes.
Kiwanis clubs do have. You need to be concerned with some of the insider information. I can tell you that I am in the midst of district convention season too, and it's just human nature that people hang with who they've gotten to know. And I walk into too many of those gatherings of where all the district officers are standing at a cocktail round in one corner and all the rest of us are at the kiddie table that feel like we're not really included because we're not part of that in crowd. And I'm not trying to suggest that there's anything wrong with, you know, fraternizing with folks that you come to know and love and everything, but you just need to be mindful that you're inclusive and that you're not dropping a lot of our Kiwanis jargon with all that SLP type alphabet soup that we have in there. So, you know, probably a club meeting isn't my favorite vehicle. I would prefer probably to just get a cup of coffee. Ken, I really love that you talked about the teamwork aspect rather than perhaps, I mean, I think it's going to be, again, human nature probably for a couple people in the club that enjoy one another to sign up for a certain month that they'll do it together. But I really would encourage perhaps the exact opposite of perhaps pairing up a couple of people that really don't know one another in the club, and perhaps they should have coffee first before they bring in their each one of them brings in their prospective member into the mix so that they get to know one another. It's just a great way, again, to get that camaraderie even more solidified in your club, and then use that as the springboard to hopefully entice a couple of people to get interested in joining you with making an impact in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
Brad, I think you mentioned you'll be forwarding them. Can we get a copy of the presentation materials you used?
Yes, and actually what I'm wanting to do, so I took the initial, just the bare bones 2 for 2, and then as you've seen, I added a lot of things. We presented a close presentation at the international convention, and there I'm a firm believer that this isn't my presentation, it's your presentation. And so I actually went back and added commentary for every slide, and I noticed last night that I maybe had different versions, and I need to make sure that every slide has the commentary with it. So what I want to provide you is the final document that will have the slides, and then if you go into notes view on PowerPoint, then you'll actually be able to pull up every slide. Some of the commentary that I use, you may need to rework it. I know I'm a little colloquial sometimes, and you probably might not be comfortable with some of my salty language from time to time or whatever, but I want you to be able to make it your own. You can take out the slides that you think are just hogwash or you don't agree with or you don't think serve your purposes. You can condense it to a half-hour presentation for a club meeting, whatever you need to do with it. It's your presentation, and to me there's no reason for me to put together a presentation like this if I'm not going to give you all the tools to make it your own and to get it out to more people. We want to push this program as far and wide as we can, and so I appreciate your comments. So you'll be getting this presentation, as well as I mentioned this neat little 2 members invite 2 prospects. It was the handout that I did for the international convention, and it'll be sort of the messaging piece that you can use that will be a companion to that. And then continually look back. You might want to bookmark on your computer that short URL, the kiwanis.org/2 for 2, and we'll be adding more and more materials onto that as well.
One other
Thanks.
One other thing to keep in mind is that this presentation was recorded and will be available on YouTube. And if you want to, can be available for a club meeting or even for a membership committee meeting, whatever the case might happen to be. So you'll have all of Brad's comments along with all of the slides that he used.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. Whenever I get the opportunity, and to me it's a distinct honor and pleasure for me, I'm very blessed to know so many of you and to get around to be with all of you. But I really believe that I want to make it as hands-on and make it as easy for you to utilize. I know your time is valuable. You're all volunteer leaders, and so I just appreciate so much. So that's the job that Lisa and I have, is to make life easier for all of you, to make you look good and be successful, and that will rub off onto Kiwanis and help the kiddos. That's the extent of it. It's all about the kids. So that's the end product and all. But I would be glad to come back. I've got a little shorter version. I can take out some of the workbook things once people sort of get accustomed with the guidebook, and just do some of the newer, more tactical ideas. I presented this to the governor-elect after the convention, and there were a couple of outside consultants we brought in to do a program, and the one gentleman said, boy, this is the most presentation with the most tactics, the most tactical presentation I've seen, where you get into the dirty and nitty gritty of here's what you need to do, or here's how to do it and everything. And that's the nuts and bolts, and that's what we want you to be able to do. So I could do this presentation. I'll be glad to zoom in with any other division council meetings or even club meetings if I can work it in. And believe me, I could do without a lunch or two. These chubby cheeks are doing just fine. But I'd be glad to do that. Or I also would be willing to do the DEI presentation that I pulled together. That one's a little bit more cumbersome for me, but I'm willing to do it. I did it for Peoria, Illinois, because I just don't show up and present. I actually do a deep dive and do a lot of Google searches. So it took me about 45 minutes to do that, but I was able to give Peoria, 25 or 20 women who are African American who own businesses in Peoria that they had never considered inviting to a meeting. I was able to give them all sorts of different ethnicities. My wife is involved with the National Association of Women Business Owners. They have a chapter in Peoria. They had a wonderful resource of a directory and things like that, local leadership programs. So I'd be glad to offer that as well.
Anybody else?
Linda.
Hi, Brad. It's Linda Henningsen.
Hey.
I came specifically today to see your presentation.
You are so kind.
Address the importance of membership retainment. It seems like our clubs, we don't think about it until it comes, July, August, September, when it's time for membership renewal. And does Kiwanis International, are they working on that? Are they offering anything that we can present to our clubs? In my opinion, retaining a member starts the day they become a member. And
Yes.
could you address that if you would, please?
Yes, thank you so much. You're singing right out of my songbook here. And I just brought this up to the lieutenant governors here in Indiana district yesterday. Retention, to me, membership is a three-legged stool, and we dwell way too much on club opening and on the strengthening our clubs, but we don't do that much on retention, and that's the other key ingredient. And Linda, you're spot on. It begins the day after they become a member. And it deals, I think most of our clubs, we need to do a real hard look. I know I'm not being Mr. Positive, but most of our clubs, a lot of our clubs do not have really good onboarding orientation programs, getting people plugged in. And I hear time and time again, those that leave are the ones that feel like they didn't really add value to the club. And a lot of times it's because the club is set in its way. I can tell you when I joined the downtown club 13 years ago, and had been involved with them a couple years before that, they had 36 service projects they'd been doing for the last 3 decades. That doesn't give you any wiggle room. And they were doing it with about half the number of members that they had. So they were really stretched tight. And so it was a challenge to find any space for some new, more relevant programs. And what I started to do, because nobody wants to vote pick which child they're going to vote off the island. That's really painful, and you don't want to deprive anyone. But we had a scholarship program that was on the south end of town that isn't where most of our members live, and so they wanted to get rid of it. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. There's a growing Burmese population that needs those scholarship program. Why, we've got the money in our foundation to support it. We just don't have the hands for service to do the program, to set up the menu, to do all the logistics. And also I found another nearby Kiwanis club in Perry Township, and they were willing to take that on because they were closer to that group. And also it was a great collaboration. And so we need to do more of that. And then my last little tip on that end, and particularly it's suitable for this time of year, because even though every month I would share with our club board the members who hadn't paid dues or that hadn't darkened our doors for 3 or 4 months in a row with a service project or a meeting and all, they took a blind eye until it became about August. And all of a sudden it hit them square between the eyes that we were going to lose. Maybe on average, we lost anywhere from 24 to 30 members every year. And that's about what we were bringing in. I only had 1 year where I had a net positive growth. It was the first in 3 decades. And it's because at the last moment, my wife's birthday is on September 28th, and I gave her the gift of Kiwanis as her birthday gift. And that wasn't the coolest move. She reminds me that she likes these sparkly things more than the Kiwanis membership. But my point is instead of sticking your club board with going after those people that haven't been around, go in and find out who brought them into Kiwanis, who sponsored them. Because Linda, if you brought me into Kiwanis and you give me a call and say, hey, I know something's probably going on, I hope your health's okay. You may have had some family challenges, maybe business is really booming right now, you're trying to get through everything, but we really need you in Kiwanis and all. It's going to be a lot harder for me to turn you down than some board member that I've not ever met because I haven't been involved for a while and everything. So that's my number one tip between now and year end, is to look at those lists, scrub through them, and find out who brought them into Kiwanis and ask them if they wouldn't do us a service by calling that person and just finding, hey, what's up and how can we re-engage you, and take the onus for us dropping the ball and not keeping them engaged. And then, as you say, working with any new member that we bring in, particularly through this 2 for 2 program. Again, the reason I like 2 for 2 is it's very manageable. So instead of having maybe a group of 5 to 7 new members that come after a membership drive of some kind or a membership event, you've got a member or 2 every month. That it makes it very easy to sort of spoon feed them. I looked out on the KI website a couple of weeks ago, in that newsletter that we have out there that's electronic had a link on there for orientation, and I printed it out, and it had like 40 items that we had to orient someone. And I went to Chris Martz and said, this is ridiculous. Nobody that joins Kiwanis wants to be stuck with learning 40 different things right away. We need to figure out how to spoon feed them. What are the critical things? And that's why I think my idea of a joyride is the best place to start, is take them around and show them where you make an impact and share your joy of how you've been able to be a part of that impact, whether it's just ringing the bells for Salvation Army that doesn't take that much effort, or whether it's really working in the schools to put together a scholarship program or something like that. So all those things are touch points that you need to be working on. But Linda, thanks for bringing that up. Hopefully I've shared an idea too there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you did.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be a great governor. I'm excited.
Brad, we thank you for your time, and
I thank all of you. I get my old clackers. Yay! Woo! Yay! Divisions 21, 22 South, 22 North. Woo!
and we want to see you in Nebraska, Iowa sometime soon.
I'm getting my sea legs back in terms of travel. So,
Yeah, good deal. Thank you very much.
all right. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for all you do to serve your communities, and especially our kiddos. Love you all. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lisa. How do you shut it off?
I mean, I don't know that, are we